Welcome back to another episode of Buckle Up, an ultra running conversation. Mandy, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Brian. I'm getting ready for vacation.
What?
Yeah, I hope you're ready to see some Strava action in Mexico.
It was 87 degrees in Windsor and sunny yesterday. You were like literally on vacation right yesterday. Like you're going to go somewhere?
Yeah, I know. It's more fun to go tropical when it's like blizzardy and cold here, which is normally what we have, but it's fine. I'm taking it. I'm excited to go. So I'm just wrapping up the week and gonna go take some time off. How about you?
Are you at one of them all-inclusive resorts?
We are. Yeah. We're going with
All the
kids.
Margaritas?
Yeah.
Are you a margarita? What are you? What would you be?
I could do like a skinny margarita. I don't like all the sugar that comes in real margaritas. It's like, ugh.
You didn't answer the question though.
I'm more of a Dos Equis.
Just a beer girl, okay?
Beer or wine, but I would drink wine in
Not just a beer girl, but
I'm a Colorado. We talk about this. I'm a Colorado girl. I like beer. But we're going all inclusive because we have the kids. After talking with our interview with Wes, I was like, man, we really need to go like more authentic, get outside the comfort zone of the all inclusive. But we've got an 11 and 13-year-old, so this is just easy and
you'll
fun.
lose money trying to feed them. You'll lose money trying to feed them, I bet.
Oh yeah. I mean, all inclusive way to go. Carter's got his eye on virgin pina coladas all day, all night. So speaking of travel. I'm not very well traveled compared to our guest today. Very much not well traveled for this guy who travels all over. And I think as far as who we interviewed and scrolling Ultra Sign Up, that feels like the longest, maybe one of the longest resumes.
Well, it's probably a world record scroll because he's got a lot of them. It's our guest today is Ed Ettinghausen, and he has over 300 100-mile finishes. And he's a little bit older than I am. I kind of knew that. I met him at the Jackpot Ultras. I've known of Ed for a long time. Obviously, if you've been around in the sport, you've done any of the loop courses, you've seen Ed. He's dressed up as a jester. He's a big giant guy. He's like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. So you can't miss him, especially when he's in costume and a suit and a jester hat, right? But I ran a few miles. I shared a few miles with Ed the Jester at Jackpot Ultra. And it was just a great conversation. It's super easy, and you'll hear it in this conversation too. He's just super easy going, a really nice guy, loves to share and tell stories. And on the trail, it kept me moving. And today, if you're listening to this on the trail, it might keep you moving as well. Over 300 finishes, but I assumed because he was older that was from, a 30-year history or something along those lines. But it's not. He just started the year before I started. And in this episode, we put in the perspective how many finishes I have compared to Ed. And there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing something that I'd never heard from. Like, I didn't know his history. I didn't know it was so short. How he got into it is really impactful. And I learned a couple of new things that I'm excited for our listeners to tune into and be inspired by Ed. And if you see him out there on a course with all of his belt buckles, he wants you to ask him questions about it. He wants you to engage with him, which is pretty cool.
I think he wants you to put him on your shoulders and do squats with him because they're about 70 pounds, or overhead presses.
That's what we need to do next time.
It's 70 pounds, 35 each. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, send it to your moms, whatever you have to do. We're trying to bring the listenership up, and we appreciate you guys for being here. Tell your friends. And share it at Run Club. Oh, that's a good one. Share it at Run Club. And I like that one. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. And be safe. Ed Ettinghausen, it's a pleasure to have you on the show this afternoon. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to join us. Where are you joining us from today?
I am in Murrieta, California, which is about an hour north of San Diego.
Is it on the coast or is it inland a little bit?
It's nice and hot inland. It's about an hour inland from the coast.
Inland, okay. Great. So like maybe northeast of San Diego, is that correct? Or is it just directly east?
Yes. Yeah, northeast of San Diego. That's correct.
All right, cool.
And
well, welcome to the show.
I was going to say, I don't know if everyone's watching, but maybe they'll tune in now because you've got a costume going on. What's the attire today?
Well, thank you for asking, Mandy. So I'm the Running Jester. So for the last, 15, 16 years, every race I do is always as a jester. But because the race I'm doing tomorrow is there's a costume contest going on, and we're just a couple days away from St. Patrick's Day. So I'm going as the jester Leprechaun, all in green, and I will have my pot of gold, and I'll be giving away as my gold. So I may not take the prize for first place, but maybe I can take the prize for best dressed or best costume.
And where is the event, and how far are you going to carry your pot of gold?
Well, the event, it's called Pirates Cove, 24 hours, a bit north of San Diego. It's a place called Lake Kiamaka. It's at about a 4,600 foot elevation, which normally would be just perfect weather, but we're having a heat wave right now in Southern California. So right now it's actually over 100 degrees where I live, which is not uncommon, but more like in June or July, not in mid-March. And so it's expected to be around 90 degrees or so, which is unusually high for us, for there. And it's a 2-mile loop. So I'll probably take it around 1 loop, maybe 2 loops, and then that's probably about it.
And so it's a timed event, maybe. Usually these loop courses are timed events. And how long are you planning on staying on the course?
So this has a 6 to 12 and a 24 hours. So I'll be out there the whole 24 hours. The goal is to get to 100 or more miles if I can. It'll be a bit of a challenge because of the heat. I'll probably, as it starts to get warm, I'll shed the jacket. But I'll keep the hat on and just go with ice and cold water and try and stay cool through the heat. And then as it cools down the night, try and pick up some miles. But yeah, the goal is every 24-hour race I do, it's always 100 miles or more. We'll see. It'll definitely be a challenge, but that's what I'm going for. So either way, I will be out the whole 24 hours.
Yeah, well, we're rooting for you. It seems like it's going to be warm, and you said the goal is always 100, so this might be where Brian was headed. But how many hundreds have you done? I mean, if anyone so far has gone to your Ultra sign up, Brian, he might be the winner for the longest scroll maybe that we've had.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, before you answer it, Ed, I'm going to try to take a guess. So I just read an article. It was about a year and a half old or so, maybe 14 months, 16 months old. And it said you had 257 100s finished. And so I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to pad my number. I'm ballparking here because I was just doing a little homework before the show. So I'm going to say we're at 266. How close am I?
Nice guess. Well, since the article came out in 2024, I reclaimed my world record for most 100-mile races in a year. I had done 41 in 2014. 2019, Walter Handloser did 50. So I actually did 56 in 2024. My race coming up tomorrow, if I can get to 100, will be my 308th 100-mile finish.
Oh,
yeah, it'll be my.
I was so far off. So far off.
So it is. I can guarantee you, it is. You won't find anyone has done more because it is the world record. Both the world record for most in a year and most in a lifetime. I also have the world record for most 100-mile attempts. Tomorrow will be my 345th 100-mile attempt, which means I have 37 100-mile DNFs, and I'm pretty proud of that record as well.
That's a 10%, right? Right? Less than 10% then.
Yeah, I'm right about 10% DNF rate, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's part of the game.
Yeah. No, I get it. I've DNF'd. I think I know Mandy's DNF'd, and my record is not 10%. It's a bit steeper. And I think as we get into the numbers more, obviously at 300, you could only assume that it's would be more exponentially greater, but not for you, Ed. So what's the motivating drive? Gosh, there's so many questions I have, but let's back up and start with, I know you've been like a lifelong runner. Maybe you ran in high school, and let's just back up all the way to the beginning and kind of like work through the process. How did you get into running in high school, and how did you stick with it? And then how did you start this crazy challenge of the world records of hundreds?
All right.
Hundreds.
Yeah. So we'll start back in high school. I went to a little high school that didn't have competition in sports. When I say, I mean, there was absolutely no sports teams. It was a private school, and they had this idea that, competition, amongst, ourselves wasn't so good, which is silly because we competed in everything, competed to get the best grades, get, first chair in band. But anyway, nonetheless, I got interested in running and I read Running magazine. And so my iconic hero was Billy Rogers, who at that point, this will tell you how old I am, but this is back in the late 70s when he was winning Boston Marathon. So I wanted to run a marathon. So from Runner's World magazine, I found a training plan and I did my first marathon when I was in high school. I was 17. I did my first two when I was 17, my next three marathons when I was 18. And then there was a long period where I wasn't doing marathons. I attempted and this is, so my first marathon was in 1980. And then in 1994, I was 31. I attempted to do a marathon, LA marathon, but I hadn't trained. I was kind of lazy. I thought, I did 5 marathons as a teenager, But as it got closer, it's like, I better do some training. And I went and did a couple long runs, and I didn't have a base, and my knees were just shot. It's just, they were really hurting. So I showed up at the start line, and after 3 miles, I was done. It's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do 100 or a marathon. And so I turned around, walked back to my car. Now, there were people who were walking the marathon, but see, my mentality, because I grew up in a time where walking a marathon was shameful. How dare you call yourself a marathon if you even walk a few steps? So there's no way I would be caught dead walking. And so for the next 14, 15 years, I did not attempt to run a marathon. I just figured out I ruined my knees. Why even try? And then when I was in my mid-50s, I had some really devastating financial losses when the real estate market turned, and I was way overextended and did some risk investments. And so we lost everything. All the money I had, we lost. I had a couple of pieces of real estate. We lost all those. And the worst of all is we actually lost my family home and to foreclosure. And so I was in a real tailspin of depression, pretty severe actually, and to a point where I was actually suicidal. And my lovely bride, we'd been married since we were 19, and she knew that I was in a really bad state. So she got me to go see a psychiatrist, which is what I really needed, to get on some medication, get some therapy. Just happened to be, whatever you want to call it, luck of the Irish or destiny or fate, whatever. The psychologist that I saw was a marathon runner. He had run the Boston Marathon quite a few times. So we had that connection. He said, Ed, you got to get back out and start doing marathons again. I said, Dr. Murphy, I can't run. My knees are ruined. He said, well, you can walk, can't you? I said, yeah. He said, well, that's your prescription. Besides the medication and the counseling, you need to get out every day and start walking. And so I started walking again, and basically it pretty much saved my life. I walked, and then after a while of walking, decided, well, maybe I can run. My knees aren't hurting. Started to run a little bit, and then I found that, by doing it slowly, I could build back up, and then started doing marathons. So this was in 2009, and I have kind of an obsessive nature about me. And so 2010, I decided I wanted to go for the world record for most marathon finishes in a year. I'd met some people who held the male and female record, which at the time was 106. So I ended up doing 135 marathons or longer in 1 year. And my 135th race for the year, that's a big clue, 135. Guess what race it was that was my 135th 100-mile race for that 1 year period? Any race you know of that ends in number 135?
I'll default to Mandy.
Badwater. That was my very first Badwater 135. I actually did 10 consecutive Badwaters. And so that was my first world record. And at that point, I was doing more ultras, and so got into the ultra scene. And then I met a woman in 2012 who was setting the world record for most 100-mile races in a year, Liz Bauer. She did 36. Well, 6 of her 36, I was there and got to know her. And that year I did 1,800. So I thought, if I just double up, I can do more than that. So then in 2014, I did 41. And as I mentioned, 19 Walter Handloser did 50 and kind of threw down the gauntlet on that. And so my goal for 2024 was to try to match my age, for the time was 62. So I had basically about 70 100-mile races lined up, which meant there were weekends where I would, double up, even triple up. And there were like it's 6 or 8 of them that logistically just didn't work out for flight cancellations or a double weekend in one race I didn't finish in time. And then I also had 6 DNS. In fact, the last 3 weekends of my year, all 3 of them were DNS. I was just, my body was just worn out and shot. So that ended up being the 56 was what I got to. And so I, continue to do them. I do about one a month. I would do more than one a month, but I want to stay married, so I keep it to about that. That's my wife says that's okay, and I know I'm really lucky because I know a lot of men that said, "Oh my gosh, if my wife would let me do even 100 a month, I'd be in heaven." So I'm really blessed. I have a great wife who supports my passion. But anyway, that's where it's at. Now I'm up to 307.
That's wild. So getting into this, obviously it was a part of like the family journey. It sounds like your wife was super supportive. Did she ever catch this running bug or the long distance urge to join you?
So when I did the 41 in 2014, she came out and supported me at quite a few of the races, which was great, except that I pretty much burned her out. After that, it's like, you know what, go have fun. Run around in circles with your friends all you want. And that's, I love the fixed time events. That's more my specialty, multi-days and the fixed time loop events. And she said, I understand it's your passion. I don't know why, but I get it. I'll never do a 100-mile race. And I'm also a 100-mile running coach. So I would never pressure her to do something that she had no interest in. And then one day she about gave me a heart attack when she said, I think I want to do a 100-mile race. We actually, at a 3-day event that I go to every year, we planned it out there, and she did 100. It was a 2-mile loop. She did 104 miles in the 3 days and got her buckle. So my wife is now a 100-miler. We have a race coming up in September that she might go out to get her second buckle. So yeah, she's a 100-miler.
That's awesome. And gosh, she's got a long way to catch you, but that's still great.
Yeah, I set the bar kind of high. So, it's doable, but yeah. The races she did, it was called Beyond Limits Ultra, which actually, when the race directions put it together, they actually brought my wife and I, another running couple, out to look at the venue and to kind of, give an idea. So she sort of had her hand in that race before it even started and did her first ultra, which was a 50K back in 2012, I believe it was. So it was a race that we were very familiar with. It's close to our home. Had just a really cool venue, and it's at a summer camp, so they have actually dormitory style sleeping, so you can just sleep right there in a bed. You can wake up and take a hot shower. The real toilets and great event. Fortunately, as happens in the ultra running community, this is a race that this year, for the first year, it would be taking place in April. It's not going to happen because the couple who owned it got a divorce, and that's just the way things go.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but what a great story that your wife's able to get out there and join you and participate, right? I think we find that in Mandy and myself's families as well. My daughter paced me for the last few miles of Leadville this past year, and I know Mandy shares running with her kids and her husband as well.
Awesome. It's great when you can get your family involved. And I have 4 adult kids. All 4 of them ran or did their first marathons with their dad when they were young. They all enjoy running to one degree or another. In fact, last night we went with my youngest daughter and her 2 kids to a weekly run club. It's every Wednesday night that my middle daughter actually runs. She puts on this weekly running club, and so all 4 of my kids have been involved in running at some point, and they still love their dad, still speak to me. So yeah, it's good family members we have.
For those of you that aren't familiar, when Ed shows up to these races at these timed events, these loops, you set up the typical table with your vehicle and all those things. But your table has a specific ornament adorning it. It looks like, I don't know, maybe a 15-foot bike chain of sorts. And it has a more than likely a lot of buckles on it. I'm going to say it's maybe 100. It might not be all 307 buckles, correct?
Well, actually, I did used to have them all on that bike chain, and then there were a couple years where I wasn't displaying my buckles, and then people would ask me, "Hey, where's the buckles? Where's the buckles?" So finally, I think it was ATY last year, I started doing it again. So now I have 2 big rings. Each ring is around 35 pounds, and so about 150 buckles per ring. So when I have them on that display table, people want to come by and hold them and get a picture. It's cool, and check out the different buckles. Not every 100-mile race I've done has a buckle. The one I'm doing tomorrow does not. This will be my 5th time doing 100 miles there. They do have, for the winner, they get a 1-ounce silver medallion that is pirate themed, which is really cool. I've got 2 of those. So, but no buckles. So I don't. And then I also have a couple buckles that were for drop downs from 100 mile to 50K. So I don't know exactly how many buckles I have on the 2 wings, but it's probably close to around 300.
My gosh. Yeah.
They're pretty big. Brian, did you lift those up this year at ATY?
I have not lifted them up. I've seen them at a few different events that Ed and I have crossed paths at, but I've never lifted them up. I've kind of siphoned through them a little bit. I was really curious about the Western States one, so I had to really get my eyeballs on that one.
Yeah. I only have Western States buckle. Pretty proud of that. It wasn't a sub 24, but hey, it was a finish, and I'll take it. It's not my I'm not so much of a mountain trail guy. I'll do them. I enjoy them. But again, my specialty is the fixed time loop events and the multi-day, the 24, 48, 72, 6 days. Those are the ones that I seem to do pretty well. But yeah, I if it's a setup to where I can, like a loop event like ATY or Jackpot, which was just last month near Las Vegas, and then the one I'm going to tomorrow, 2-mile loop, I can set it up right there, and people can come by and look at them and kind of go through them and find the buckle that they like. Typically, they're looking for Western States and then Badwater. I've got 10 of the Badwater buckles, so those are a bit easier to find. The Western States is kind of, it's like a hidden treasure. You gotta spend a bit to find that one.
Yeah, when we were at ATY, and I have a picture of my son. He's 13, and he ran 32 miles in the 24-hour race at ATY. There's a picture when we were doing one of the loops together that he stopped when he was trying to bicep curl.
Awesome, very good. And how old is your son?
My oldest is 13, so that was him. His name's Carter, and then our youngest is 11, and he this year did 14 miles in the 6 hour. Last year they both did about 21, 22 miles in the 6 hour.
Very cool. That's awesome.
They love going out there. I think what we love about that event is people of all ages, all abilities. There's walkers, there's runners, people like yourselves that show up and just show the true spirit of it. And honestly, I think you when the community take a look at those buckles, like it's really just, it adds so much to the spirit of there's no limit, and we can do this for as long as we want, as often as we want, or staying married too is an important part of that. But such an inspiration, Ed, to see all that you've accomplished and for you to show up and be a shining star at those events. I mean, the energy that you put off, the willingness to just chat with anyone on those loops.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll talk your ear off. That's why I love the loop events. I do races for the experiences with people. And that's why some people are totally into the mountain trail courses because they love the surrounding beauty, which I do too. But I cherish the memories that I make with people and sharing stories and hearing, what motivates them. And then we also help each other out. I love to get as many miles as I can in the night, try and minimize my sleep. And the best way for me to get big miles is to hook up with somebody and do loops during the night. We keep each other going. So yeah, that's part of what I really love about the event. And again, like you said, there's a lot of energy that's going on there, but everybody has their own story. And if you were at ATY, the most amazing story really to me, well, there's a lot of amazing stories. Everybody has an amazing story, but really seeing Ann Trayson there getting her 100-mile buckle and, with her walker, and that was so inspiring. And I was totally honored. She had kind of a felt jester hat that she wore for part of it as well, which is really cool. We actually did a little exchange. She gave me that hat. So I saw her early on with that hat on, and I didn't sign up for ATY until the morning of. So she didn't know I was going to be there. And so when I saw her on the course, like, oh, Ann, she's like, I didn't know you were going to be here, Ed. Like, yeah, I love your hat, because she had that big felt jester hat on. I said, where did you get that one to get one? She said, I'll tell you what. She said, don't tell anybody, it's a secret, but if I can get to 100 miles, I'm going to give you that hat. So every time I would see her, I'd say, Ann, I know a secret, keep going. And then eventually the word got out that she was going for 100, then it was no secret anymore. we actually exchanged hats afterwards, and I had my typical colorful Jester hat. I had that one that I'd been wearing at different races, and I also had a brand new one that was still in the wrapper. And I said, Ann, you can get a brand new one, which I would really recommend. You can get this old one with this Jester cooties on it. Gross. She said, I want the Jester cootie hat. So that's what we did. We exchanged them after the race, and that was really a cool thing. I saw Ann at Jackpot, and there's a couple races coming up that I'll see her at as well. And just, I love so much that with her history and what she's accomplished. I mean, in her time, she was on 14 Western States wins, I believe, for Leadville. You can tell me that. That's your hometown race, but I think she won it 4 times, maybe, at least twice, and set the course record, which is just recently broke, and comrades. And so for her to go out there, what she's doing, what she's able to do with her rheumatoid arthritis, it's just, I am so inspired by that.
Yeah, that's such a great story. We both witnessed Ann at across the years as well. And Ann's really not known to be the dresser upper, but it kind of leads me back to you. And the question I have for you is what is the deal with the Jester, and how did that become to be, and why is it a thing? And secondly, well, I guess we could start there because I do have a follow-up question, but we'll start there.
Okay. So, and the great thing about the stories that I have is they're really easy to fill up time when I'm out walking with somebody, or running, walking, whatever, doing loops. And so I've got so many stories but I have to limit it because we are limited time on a multi-day race. Like, we have all the time in the world, So I'll take you short. So when I started running marathon, I was one of the founding members of a new running club called Riverside Roadrunners. And we had kind of broken away from another group that was Loma Linda Lopers, and they had a pink, was their color. They had a pink hat. Well, when we broke away to do our own thing, we, weren't part of them anymore. So I started wearing different hats, and I wore this one hat that was like a visor with this fake hair because I'm bald. And so I was Surfer Dude. And we did this little skit, myself and one of our other club officers. She would ask me questions, I would ask her questions. She was Professor Mo. I was Surfer Dude. All right, so Professor Dude, you're doing this race. And is it one of those 5-mile marathons? No, Surfer Dude. Marathons are always 26.2. So, just this kind of back and forth banter. And so it went over really well with the club. So I said, well, I'll wear that hat at the upcoming marathon, Surf City Marathon in Huntington Beach. And that was about the time I decided I was going to go for the record for the most marathons in a year. So then I decided, it'd be fun to get different fun hats. So I just started going to secondhand stores, getting, whatever hat I could find that was crazy. Yeah, I had a cheese head at one point and a hat with an arrow through it, just all kinds of crazy hats. I picked up a Jester hat in one of these, Salvation Armies and put it on, and it just seemed to fit me. It fit my personality, all about having fun, not taking things too seriously. And so from that point on, I started wearing the Jester hat. Well, my wife said, if you're going to be the Jester, you might as well go all the way. So she made me a Jester skirt, which was multicolored panels with bells at the end. And I wore that for probably about a dozen years. And then when I got to be 60, I don't know, I didn't feel like wearing a skirt anymore. It just felt like that was for a younger person. So then I graduated into wearing suits, and I found different color suits, like a red suit, a blue suit, a green suit, a white suit. My last year I did Bowwood, I wore a white suit. And then I found a suit that was Mardi Gras colors, the 3 Mardi Gras colors. And then I found a Jester suit that was all the Jester colors. So that's what I wear now, the Jester suit. And it always has the Jester hat. And sometimes I have different Jester hats I can pull out, like, for St. Patrick's Day.
That was my follow-up question. How many Jester suits do you have? Maybe because it sounds like less than hats, but then do you know how many Jester hats you have?
I buy them in bulk. So I actually have a box of probably about 100 new Jester hats that I can, when they start to get worn out, after a couple of times, they're, it's time to get rid of them. So, but I have probably different types or styles of Jester hats, probably maybe 12 or 15.
That's a good collection. It sounds like maybe you've given one away or others away. Have you ever received a Jester hat from anyone as a gift and worn it out on the race?
The only Jester hat I have received from someone is the one that I got from Ann Trayson, the big felt green and red Jester hat, the big tall thing with some bells on it. If someone finds a Jester hat and wants to give it to me, I'll gladly take it. But yeah, that's my only experience with getting a Jester hat. And of course, getting it from Ann Trayson, that just is very, very special for me.
So I've been across the years a couple of times now, and then Ed and I, we shared a couple of miles at Jackpot just most recently, and you're always in the Jester costume. But at across the years, what I've noticed in a couple of years is that you'll just be running and you'll be in the red one for a few hours, and then then all of a sudden you come around the next lap and you're in a green one, and then you're in a yellow one, and then you're in the multicolored one, right? You're out there having fun and doing this, but do you think you could shave a little bit of time if you didn't change it?
Well, the time that I actually changed it that you're referring to was not this last ATY, but the year before. So that was part of my run to try and do the most hundreds in a year. So at ATY, I did 3 separate hundreds in 3 separate races. So each time I was doing a different 100, I was in a different suit. And at ATY, I actually had Christmas suits. I had 3 different Christmas suits that I could only wear there because it's so close to Christmas. So yes, I did switch out I had a blue and a red and a green one. So, but typically I'll just stay in the one suit the whole time.
Okay. I thought that was a normal thing, but that was specific to across the years and the goal of 3 100s separate.
Right.
And it's like you've got your own rules to how this works. There's rules and guidelines with this costume. So good to know, insider tricks. If we see you in a different suit, it means you're on your second or third 100 at that event.
Yeah. And you could kind of tell because I'm going slower and I'm probably a bit ripe, so you can tell I'm a bit into it. It's like a 6-day event.
Speaking of rules, I just want to touch on it briefly. I don't think we have to take a deep dive into it, but the challenges, the hundreds and all these things, and specifically across the years where you did 3 separate 100s in the 6 days that we go out there and enjoy ourselves. And so I guess they would have been the first 3 days of the week because the last 3 days would have been part of a new year, correct? So there are some gray areas, but I think ultra running history and Davy Crockett specifically are trying to help, and yourself probably are trying to help create a structure and a guideline for what's acceptable and where the gray area might lie. Do you want to touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind?
Sure. Davy Crockett is kind of the historian on these events, and he actually is the one who started the 100 times 100 mile club. There was a point to where I thought I had the most 100-mile races. So back when I had around 150, 160. And this is before Davey started the 100 times 100 mile club. And I look on Ultra signups. I knew who the 100 mile runners were that were maybe had quite a few. And so people would ask me, do you have the most 100 mile races? I'd say, I do. I think I'm pretty sure I do. And then I found out about a woman in Great Britain named Sandra Brown. And she actually had more. Now, they're not on Ultra signups. There's only a few on Ultra signups because, again, she's in England. And a lot of the races that she's done, they're races, but they're put on by her local running club. So they're not really something you could find publicly. I found out that, when Davey started the club and he started doing some research, found out that she actually had, a few more than me. In 2021, I actually caught up to her. At the time, she had 210. So I caught up and tied her, and then I've moved beyond. So in the 100 times 100 mile club, there are 37 people. That the newest one just joined, Mark Tanaka, a good friend of mine, just became the 37th person with 100 or more, 100 or longer races. There are 3 people that have at least 200 100-mile races. That would be Sandra Brown. She's right now at about, I believe, 20, and she's 78, but she still goes out and once or twice a year, she'll knock out 100 miles. Then with 249 is Mike Smith from New Mexico. He's 68, and he does a good 15 to 20 a year as well. And he is a mountain trail specialist. All of he actually has 251 100-mile or longer races, but because the way Mike counts them, he has a fat dog 120 and a Badwater 135, doesn't count them because to him it's 100-mile races. So he has 249 100-mile races. Now for me, my races are 100-mile or longer. So if you average my races out, they're about 125 miles per race because I've got quite a few that are over 200, 300, 400, and those count as one. I don't divide them up. So just a different way of counting, but we're all part of the club. We all do our own thing, and that's the great thing about the ultra community, but specifically even the 100-mile community, is there's so many options. Someone like Mike Smith, he enjoys his mountain trail races. I like the flat, paved, loop races, the multi-day races. There's room for everybody, and there's some people who can kind of straddle both. There's people who specialize in one or the other, but again, that's the beauty of this sport. Lots of options.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask that you've, with such a long history of the sport and towing the line at so many races, this is an ever-evolving sport, hobby. It's changed from how many races there are, how many races are actually like, making a profit out of this versus just what it started as just for fun. So I guess given like recent trends and where we're at today, what would you say you're loving the most about improvements in the races, availability? Like, I don't want to go down the negative road so much. We can too, like any criticism, like, man, I really loved it back when, but I kind of want to start with like the positive. Like, what are some changes or growth that you've seen that you love about what we're doing today?
Well, I've seen a few changes now. My first 100 was in 2009. Some of the real old timers will go, oh, you're just a pup. And I'm now 17 years into doing hundreds. One of the changes that I've seen in particular that I really think is good is, I don't know your background, how far back you go. You're younger than me. I don't know how far back you know as far as what they used to do races, but they used to do this thing called a weigh-in, where you'd have to weigh in at the beginning, and then they'd mark your weight on your bib, and then you'd weigh in, not at every aid station, but every so often. And if your weight wasn't what they considered, if you were too much above or below your weight, you'd have to stop and wait for a bit. And Leadville was one that did that. So I can tell this story now, but I was sworn to secrecy for a few years afterwards. This happened. So my friend Michael Miller, he was going for the Grand Slam. Grand Slam, it's Western States in June, Vermont in July, Leadville in August, and there's other options besides Leadville, but Leadville in August and Wasatch in September. So it's all four of those races, the oldest races in the 100-mile, sport, and within a summer. So Michael had done Western States, did great there, did Vermont, did great there. He was at Leadville, and he came into an aid station, and they weighed him. They said, your weight is too low. At the next aid station, if it hasn't, if you haven't gained or if you've lost any more, they're going to make you sit out for a while. He was pushing cutoffs, and he knew that wasn't going to work for him. So as he was coming into the aid station, he actually reached down, picked up rocks, put rocks in his pocket, got the weigh in, got rid of the rocks, finished the race. Now his wife, Kimberly, who was also a 100-mile runner, when she heard about it, she was livid. Michael, you can't do that. He's like, shh, they don't know. But if he had to sit out for that weigh-in, he probably wouldn't have made it through and got his Grand Slam. Now they don't do that anymore. And I'm grateful for, because I had it happen to me. I was in a race, Santa Barbara 100, and it was probably around mile 65 or so, came into A station, and the weight wasn't right. And the A station captain was like, you're going to have to sit for an hour. It's like, no way. I'm not doing that. And I knew the race director, Jacob. I said, look, you could tell Jacob that I did not do what you told me to do. If he wants to DQ me, I'll take it from him. But I'm sorry, I'm moving on. And I did. Whether he told Jacob or not, I don't know, because Jacob didn't say a word to me when I got to the finish. He gave me my buckle, so I was happy for that. But so I'm really, really glad they've done away with that. Now, ceremoniously, Badwater does a weigh-in, but it's only, they put the weight on inside of your bib, and then they never weigh you again. It's for you if you want to use it for your own personal, you're checking for on your own. But it's, again, ceremonial. It's just purely ceremonial. I like that. I would like to see a couple things done at 100-mile races. I'd like to see there be a consistency in markings. Every trail race you do, the markings are different colors. Some of them, like Air Vipa, is great the way they mark their courses, their trail races, because they have a system in place. Like if you're coming up to a turn, they'll have like 3, flags in a row on the side you're going to turn. And some races keep the markings all on the right side. So if you take a nap and you wake up and you're all turned around, oh, look for, so I'd like to see, and even colors. You'll see some races that use colors that mean out of bounds. Other races use colors that this is the right. It's like, it's all jumbled. It seems like we could get some consistency in the markings. I'd like to see that take place. I'd like to see them re-examine the way they do cutoff times for a race. Now, not the end cutoff, that's fine, but many times along the way, they'll do, really strict cutoffs that theoretically force you to go faster so you can go slower as you proceed on. But anybody who's done a 100-mile race knows that sometimes you're just having a bad race to begin with. Maybe you have a stomach issue, maybe you got lost, you got back on course, and now you've lost time. And I've been cut off many times from races that I likely would have made it if I didn't have that hard early cutoff. So I'd like to see them look at that. And then I think, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion. They already do it in all the 200-mile or longer races where there's a spot device that you wear on the race. I think in 100-mile trail races, that would be a really good thing to do as well. Loop races that I'm used to doing, you don't need that. It's 2-mile loop. But when you're out on a remote trail race, I think for so many reasons, for safety reasons and for any crew, and I rarely have crew, but it would be good, or family to be able to follow. So I'd like to see those changes take place, some consistency in those areas. But I'm all for, I know some people are like, in the old days, it was only so many people. Now there's so many people. Well, it's like, I think it's great. The more, the better, because it opens it up to more people. And why should we be able to say, exclusively, I should get the experience and nobody else knows new people? Why? At one point, we were all new. And so I don't like that at all. Some people have that kind of attitude. And I love lots and lots and lots of people. And course markings, I like breadcrumbs. You'll never hear me say, wow, that course had way too many markings. No, the more the better for me, because I can get lost just going to the bathroom on my own home. So anyway, that's kind of and everybody in this sport has their own things they'd like to see done differently. But overall, some people talk about the commercialization. In fact, 2013, when I did attempted Leadville, my only attempt, and I ended up DNFing, but that was, I believe, the year when they had the most people ever. I think it was like 1,100. And it's out and back. So that was way, way too many people for especially the narrow single track trail, people with poles. Just wasn't good at all. And they got some real backlash from that. In fact, I think that was when they got dropped from Hard Rock's list, partly because of having it too many people in the race. But other than that, where, like again, an out and back on a single track, that just wasn't, it was too many people. And then you've got the Congo line when you start out at Leadville as well. So maybe a lot of people's not so good. Maybe certain races, they should limit them. But other than something like that, I like seeing lots of people, because sadly, there are races that aren't as popular. And it's a labor of love from a race director that they're lucky if they break even. Many times they're going to go into debt. And my middle daughter is a race director as well. She does 5K races, puts on local 5K races. I know from the inside what that's like, how much is invested in time and money. And so it saddens me when I see a race that goes away for various reasons, but many times if it's because it's just not enough participation. And yet you have these other races that, the minute they go online, it's all the spots are grabbed up, or it's a huge lottery. It'd be nice if you see that kind of even out a bit. And there's some great races that are no longer held because people weren't aware of them for whatever reason, and race directors just couldn't keep them going.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. And side note, I'd encourage you to email me off the side. We're working on a lot of those things that you brought up. So I'm a race director as well. I put on 12 races a year, and some trails, some local, 5K to marathon and urban ultra distances. But we've talked about some of those things. So we go to a US trail running conference, and I'm an advisory panel for it this year. It's put on by Ultra Sign Up, and we're realizing that as the sport continues to grow and we're expanding and there are more runners, that there's also this feedback piece that we're kind of missing. So we're trying to really connect the dots between what's going on, whether it's changes or things that are new, or just things that we just as race directors just need to improve on, because it's such a big market now. And something we talked about at the last conference we got together was trail marking. I'm with Dale at Hard Rock, and so many other race directors there. Cocodone is there, and we're all like, how are we all marketing the course? Because we're all doing it differently, but we have the exact same demographic. And so I think that that's something that we will be working on the next year or two, is some standardization amongst us. Most of us are, independent race directors who just do things our own way. And so we're working on standardizing some of that stuff. But yeah, like you said, that's kind of another piece too that we've talked about, is we're all in the same room together, and some of us are struggling to get by and break even or figure out how we can put this race on while losing money. And then we've got others that are, filling up. And so I have hope for it. I think we're seeing a lot of really cool collaboration amongst race directors right now, where we're binding together on all sorts of levels. But yeah, I think to anyone listening to this, if you are running a race or you want to email me, we're all looking for feedback. And now keep it kind, and keep it, we can't change the world in one day, but I think we're always looking for that feedback from coaches on what we can do to keep making things better for you guys.
That's good. That's good to know. I'm glad. That makes me feel really good as an ultra runner, that that is something that has been taken seriously by the community and by the powers that be. So I'm glad you shared that with me, Mandy. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. And I had one just quick story, and then just some final thoughts before we wrap it up for you. But I was at Leadville 2013 with you, and remembered the masses and the amount of trash and all the things and the issues that were around that race. I believe now I've been there quite a few times since then, and I know that they've fixed a lot of those issues as well. They go to 800, and then when they don't have a wait list, so when people defer or drop out or just don't show up, they just don't backfill it, and they usually start around 700 right now, which is way more manageable than I think the 1100 or 1132 that we started in 2013, which was pretty obnoxious.
Crazy. But with the 800, it seems to work out well with that race. You feel that that's not over?
It's still a bit much, and the race has grown in popularity. So even though there's 800 runners or 700 runners, there's a lot of spectators, and so now the aid stations are getting overwhelmed. But as far as the course goes, I feel like it's pretty manageable as far as 700 runners spread out across the course. It is a little bit of a Congo line in the morning on the lake, but that's kind of what we expect, I guess. And another funny story is that I was of the era of weighing in at Leadville, and I would have my wife move the aid station, like our little crew spot, closer to the roadways before the weigh-in stations, and I would fill my water bottles full and load up with all this food and get on the scale. So at least I weighed more. And they were like, "Oh, do you want to drop it in your stuff?" And I'm like, "No." And I was like weighing in, like the pre-race weigh-in, like I was like a heavyweight fighter. Like I was stripping down just to my shorts, like no shoes, no socks, no shirt. Just running shorts. So I was as light as possible. And then I was trying to like offset it with that other end. I was trying to micromanage that weigh-in process, which obviously we don't do anymore.
Yeah, which is crazy because, a good aid station captain, and I have to say that wasn't right on my part to disobey the aid station captain, but I don't recommend that. You should, but I felt he had kind of that God complex, so he's like, hey, I can tell you to stay, you have to stay. It's like, no, I can go if I want. But I do agree that you should definitely pay attention. But a good aid station captain, they can see someone come in, forget what their weight is, you can tell. You need to, let's take a little break here. I mean, because if they send them out, this like that person's about to die, maybe not quite that bad, but they're really, really struggling. And so you can tell, and you can kind of, hey, let's get you, some more hydration. What are you doing? What's happening? How you feeling? So I think that makes a lot more sense. I mean, it's not like, we're not like at a prize fight where we're in different weight classes, so we need to know what each other's weights are. It's like, but
totally. And as an aid station captain, I don't think those things can happen to anybody, no matter what they weigh. I mean, whether they've lost more weight or less weight, I think it's more of a reading the person and how they're reacting and how they're doing. Gosh, Ed, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. A complete legend in the space, over 300 100-mile finishes in 17 years. I was just behind you. I started my 100-mile journey in 2010. But I only have 16 finishes compared to your 307. So I got some room still. I got some making up to do, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but how old are you? What's your age, Brian?
I'll be 52 here in May. So I think I'm about 12, 13 years behind you.
There you go. So, I mean, at a certain point, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. Now, I'm planning to do this in my 80s and 90s. So you're going to have to push for it. But, you're younger than me. So whatever, high bar I set, you've got time to catch up and pass me. So here you go.
I appreciate that, Ed, but actually, I was going to say I appreciate that, Ed, but I actually think that I'm just going to defer to you. You can just have it.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to chase that. When you guys were talking about DNFs, I'm like, yeah, I have one, but I also only have 3 finishes. Your ratio.
It's funny how we talk about these things. When you say only have 3 finishes, do you know what the percentage is or what the numbers are with people completing a 100-mile race? Are you familiar with what that number is?
I think it's 0.01% of the population, if I'm not mistaken, or something along those lines.
It might be. I don't know the math conversion, but I do that about 1 in every 200 Americans will do a marathon. 1 every 100 to 200. Okay, so that's about 1%, half to 1%. But, and it's really hard to find the numbers, but my research, what I've been able to find is it looks like only about 1 in every 40 to 50,000 Americans will ever do a 100-mile race. And that's doing one. Many people are one and done. You've done 3. So you got to understand, man, that when you're in a group of 100-mile runners, I've only done 3. But when you're outside that group, that's so super impressive because people are like, what? You've done a 100-mile race? So it all depends on where you're at. But that's an accomplishment. That's awesome. Nothing wrong with 3.
Yeah, I understand. You guys, we're all in the same boat. And when we tell other people what we do, it's beyond comprehension. So I, fully get that. And to us, it's like, yeah, I did it. We'll do another one. And they're like, how? So it's cool. Well, thanks, Ed, for your time. It was awesome to hear your stories. I didn't know about the weigh-in thing either. I'm newer. I just got into running ultra in 2021. So I didn't hear that story. But I'm sure there are other cool little stories like that. So we appreciate you sharing today.
Got to be here. Thanks so much, Brian and Manu, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
We'll talk soon, Ed. Take care. We'll talk soon.